Yes, well, I do exercises morning and evening. I suppose the best I could say is they are similar to Paramhansa exercises, which were originally called Yogoda and then called energization. And, well, I don't know if you call it my interpretation or these are just my exercises now, but I do them differently. So I will talk about such accordingly, okay? You might wonder, well, why do you do them differently? Because I think that this way suits me better, suits the goals I have. I also do not believe in following a guru. Don't get me wrong. I'm fascinated by what these gurus teach, but I don't necessarily accept it. I accept some of possibly each teaching. If I accepted all, I would be rather cautious that I was worshipping the guru, and I wouldn't like to be doing that. So, I don't take it that Paramahansa was always right in what he said, or what he wrote. Having said that, he's been one of the most influential people, if you like, as presented in the autobiography, most influential in my life. Along with, as you know, something like John's Gospel and Bhagavad Gita. But I don't follow a religion or a particular guru. I hold, as you probably know if you've listened to some of my recordings, that we only have one teacher, and that is the Holy Spirit. And I know that's rather not terribly clear as to what I mean by that, but the notion that the teacher speaks only of God is the ideal, where God is your ideal, the one you worship. And I hold, of course, that it's probably the safest way to see God is to see him as your dad, loving heavenly dad, possibly all-powerful and all-loving. That you at least get a lot right if you start from that position. And you find very quickly that such a view is extremely beneficial in your life. You find you're a happier, fuller, more hopeful person. Yes, coming back to the exercises. One of the bits of advice from Paramahansa was don't take any notice of your breathing in general, apart from for specific exercises. I think that's not likely to be the best advice. There's a tendency when you open the arms to breathe in, and when you crunch the body up, like bending forward, to be breathing out. Natural. And perhaps he was relying on you breathing naturally rather than being too conscious of it. Yeah, okay. I took his advice quite early on that we gain nothing by leaving the lungs empty. So I don't leave them empty deliberately. I do find with the breathing exercises, referred to as Kriya, in the Paramahansa sort of approach to things, that the breathing gets lighter and and lighter, quieter and slower with practice of the Kriya exercises, which is a sort of triangular breathing, which I've talked of before. I approach the exercises not from a mystical point of view. I take it that if you use a limb, it develops appropriately. If you want a Samson-like body, well, fair enough, do weight training or tension exercises. If you want a body that's appropriate to the movements that we do, then the movements that we do will actually develop the body appropriately. If you leave your body unattended for hours whilst you watch a screen or read a book, or even sleep in bed, then, well, the muscles don't get refreshed with supplies of blood, apart from what the heart pumps to them. So the muscles actually benefit from flushing out from time to time some level of tension, followed by relaxation. So if I give an example, if you tense your forearm for a moment and then relax, well, you will have tended to pump blood to the muscle, and then when you relax, the blood can circulate back out and so on. Tense, you probably squeeze the tissues. You relax and the blood flows in, brings fresh oxygen and so on. Nourishment. I think that's what exercise does. You can work the muscle so hard that you start to tear it down, and then it has to rebuild, presumably at night and so on, in the next day or two. And the muscles gets bigger and stronger. Fine if you want to build muscles. Why would you want to do that? Perhaps you want a beautiful looking body. Well, fair enough. Go to a weight trainer, they'll show you how best to do it probably. We are just doing exercises for health and vitality, I think. I think a certain level of health and vitality also gives you a health and vitality of mind and spirit too. I think we're all linked together in that way. So it's important to have enough exercise and the right exercise. And I think the exercise routine Paramahansa basically gave us is pretty good in that regard. I don't worship it. I don't say that you must do it morning and evening for the rest of your life without missing, and that you should feel a bit guilty if you've missed today. But on the other hand, a good habit is a great blessing. So you'd be wise to work at it in that sense. Paramahansa advised low, medium and high tension. Well, I would say medium tension. Not no tension. I don't think if you're not using the muscle at all, you're scarcely moving the limb, well, that's not going to do us any good. But a tension where you're straining, anything like straining, is definitely not required. And more importantly, may make your exercise routine so burdensome that you don't really want to do it. So my advice would be, make sure your exercise routine is such that you're happy to always do it, nearly always. And if you're not happy to do it, you don't do it that morning or that evening, or it doesn't fit. Fair enough. It's not meant to be a burden, it's meant to be a blessing. Do you see? You're doing things for blessing, not for routine, not for obedience, but for a blessing. And typically the ideal is something that's both a blessing now and into the future, both. Not a great cost in the present, but it's worth it for this long-run goal. No, the ideal is that life is a blessing. In other words, we want you to enjoy being at school. Not wish to goodness you didn't have to go to school today. In fact, if you feel that way, you probably won't learn very much when you get there. So, adapt what I say in the direction of what makes a routine, such as it is a routine, a blessing to you and a joy to do. Okay? It's not a strain, a burden, something that has to be done, and you're longing to get to the end of it. If you're longing to finish, finish now. Come back to it later in the evening if you want to do the rest of the routine, or don't bother. Do you see? I want the exercise routine to be a blessing. It's not going to be a blessing if you've turned it into a burden by doing the exercises too much or too hard. Or in environment which is, Paramahansa says open the window. In fact, ideally do it outside. What, in the scorching sun? Well, no, presumably under a tree. In the freezing cold? No, perhaps it's not a good idea. Stay indoors. Have all the windows shut? Not sure. Try and get some ventilation if you can. Do you see? You're not just doing the feasible. You're doing something that is going to be a joy and a blessing. Find ways of achieving that, or you probably won't keep it up, in which case all your efforts will be wasted and lost. Make sense? I hope so. See how you go. But of course, if you want how Paramahansa did it, well, you can always watch the video of Kriyananda and his advice accordingly, or you could join SRF, Self-Realization Fellowship, and learn the way they feel that things are meant to be done. Bless you. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.